At Schlossberg on the Wupper River, Alhun and Leonhard Zuckermann run a brush and paintbrush shop, the last of its kind that still makes what it sells. Industrial goods do not cross this threshold. Nearly everything here was made by their own hands. A good hairbrush has to do two things. It has to care for the hair, spreading the scalp's natural oil evenly through every strand, giving it shine. And it has to massage the scalp itself, improving blood flow, carrying nutrients to the hair roots. A natural cycle, known and trusted for over 100 years. Leonhard Zuckermann calls himself a Feinbürsten- und Feinhaar-Pinselmacher, a fine brush and fine hairbrush maker. He learned the trade from his father, who founded the workshop in Solingen in 1949. Back then, the work was different. Most of what left that workshop went straight to the cutlery industry. Grinding brushes, polishing brushes, tools for an entirely different trade. Solingen needed brushes the way a kitchen needs knives. Leonhard's father supplied them. In the 1980s, that industry began to change. Orders for grinding and polishing brushes grew fewer every year. In 1988, Leonhard and Alrun made a decision. Move to the castle. Specialize. Instead of coarse brushes for factories, they would make fine brushes and paintbrushes for private customers. A trade built on volume became a trade built on precision. People often ask him how he ended up making brushes for a living. His answer is simple: his father. And once you are in this trade, it does not let you go easily. He says it plainly. He had hair and bristles in his mother's milk. Now he marks the first path. He begins in the center with the first 4 holes. A fifth is offset above them. The first 2 round rows are marked out by pencil. Everything after that follows automatically from the pattern, once the threading itself begins. Now the wire. Pulled once through the first hole. Then a loop is formed. A loop made specifically to gather and draw in the first bundle. That bundle has to be the right amount, enough to fill the hole completely. The next loop forms continuously. The wire simply bent and pulled through, the bundle folded in its middle, drawn tight against the stop at the hole's base. Another loop, another opening. The bundle folds in at the center, drawn in the same way, and already the 4th hole is filled, the beginning of the first full row. Then he has to stop, cut the wire, change tools. Every motion here repeats exactly. Loop, fold, draw, stop. The rhythm of the entire brush is built one bundle at a time. The wire bends again, pushed through the hole, opened at the front into a loop. The bundle is taken, drawn in, and the process continues, identical, hole after hole. This shape is called the Spinnfeger, the crescent moon duster. Common across the Rhineland, still used today, made from horsehair. Originally used to sweep away cobwebs, later for washing high windows in the old Bergisches houses with their tall panes and shutters. The housewife would clean them from outside using the long handle. Practical, purpose-built, exactly the shape the job required. The hole itself is conical, funnel-shaped. That shape is deliberate. It lets the bundle draw tight against a natural stop. To achieve that, the wire is pulled from behind. For drawing in, they use rust-proof stainless steel wire, a V2A alloy chosen specifically for its tensile strength. The wire arrives on large rings, 1 to 2 kilograms depending on the wire's diameter. From those rings, Leonhard and Alrun wind their own hand spools, the exact tool used for every single drawing-in motion shown so far. Nothing here is bought pre-measured. Even the spool in his hand was wound by his own fingers. Now the last hole. The wire is torn off deliberately. This is the one place where they intentionally weaken the wire, a designated breaking point, so that a single sharp pull tears it clean through. Then the free end is threaded back through and knotted. Once that knot is set, the wire can be twisted off. The rest is secured. The final row gets one more pass with the comb. Then it is trimmed. Now the stop is visible again, and with it the curve of the finished piece. At the very end, he runs the comb through once more. Any small unevenness left behind gets corrected by hand with simple scissors. No machine finishes this brush. A comb, a pair of scissors, and a craftsman's eye decide when it is truly done. The traditional backbone of every brush is wood. Only in the second half of the 20th century did that begin to shift, partly toward plastic bodies. In the past, far more fine hardwoods were used than today. For hairbrushes, for clothes brushes, for anything of real quality. That wood is rare now, increasingly scarce, increasingly expensive. Here is a piece built the old way, a furniture brush wood. The base is maple, an ebony veneer between layers, a cherry wood cap on top, fine milled edges, a precise drilling, 369 holes, each 1.6 millimeters wide. Draw a brush through wood like this, and this is the shape you get. This one is goat hair, a dust brush, dense as velvet, finely divided, with a beautiful form shaped in part by the wood itself. Compare that to what you can buy today, a mass-produced base, 70 holes, each 4.3 millimeters wide, drawn with goat hair the same way. It works, it serves its purpose, but it is no longer the elegance of the earlier models. What Leonhard genuinely enjoys, and rarely has enough time for, is restoring old silver brush sets. This set he bought years ago at an antique market, black as coal when he found it. He polished it, restored the brushes, renewed them. Now it sits here for sale, because plenty of people are still drawn to pieces like this. In the brush trade, women were once employed in very large numbers, especially when the handwork, the manufactura system, was still widespread. 2 reasons. Women's fingers were usually more nimble and faster than men's, and they were paid less, which, for the workshops of the time, made them more economical. Even today, many women still work specifically in fine hairbrush making because it demands exactly the fingertip sensitivity the smallest brushes require. This is Leonhard Zuckermann. There are essentially 2 drawing-in techniques here. Drawing in, einziehen, is simply the act of pulling hair into the wood. Flat pieces that can be clamped into a vise are drawn in with the toggle method, exactly what you have already seen. Where the material allows, which does not work for fine goat hair, they use a separating apparatus instead, faster, more even than dividing hair or bristle by hand. But pieces that are more delicate or shaped differently, like the duster you saw earlier, cannot be clamped into a vise at all. For those, the wire itself is fixed in place, and the piece being worked stays flexible, drawn against the stationary wire. That is the real difference between the 2 methods, not the tool, but which side of the process stays still and which one moves. Goat hair is extremely soft. It clings to itself so strongly that separating a single bundle genuinely requires both hands. That single fact is also the reason factories cannot produce this material by machine. There is no mechanical process that replicates what 2 trained hands do instinctively with goat hair. Machines can cut, machines can sort, but this particular material resists being automated, even now. In their workshop, labor is divided by material. Alrun has specialized heavily in goat hair, this especially fine hair, and she is extremely practiced, fast, and excellent at it. It would make no sense for Leonhard to duplicate that work. Instead, he concentrates on the materials that are a bit more demanding to process, materials that, in his words, require a man's hand. 2 specialists, 1 workshop. This particular goat hair comes from the hide itself. The cashmere goat carries a very dense undercoat and a very long guard hair. That hair also carries an unusually high natural oil content, which means when you use it for dusting, the dust actually sticks to the brush rather than scattering back into the air, exactly what a housewife wants from the tool. Afterward, simply tap it clean outside. Goats, like most animals, come in different natural colors: white, gray, black. They use black and white specifically for decorative reasons, because it simply looks better. In the past, everything was made white only. Eventually, that becomes monotonous for the work itself and less appealing to the customer than a brush with a bit of pattern. The idea was Alrun's years ago. They put it into practice. It was received extremely well. Now it is never just one pattern. Entirely different designs, many variations, and customers respond to it gratefully. Something practical is allowed to look good, too. During industrialization, as the manufacture system slowly grew, people worked from home, and then, naturally, had to sell what they made. A father or a son carried a kippa on his back and a basket on his arm, walking from village to village, house to house, city to city, offering the goods directly. Today, that has changed completely. They live entirely off private customers. That is why they are here, in this shop, every single day. Leonhard and his wife do handwork right here in the shop, partly because customers find it genuinely interesting to watch, and partly because there simply is no time to only wait for customers. Production has to continue constantly. Their current catalog runs to more than 800 distinct articles, made to a quality they insist customers will want to come back for. Years ago, a professor of music visited, a bassoon teacher. His instrument needed an extremely fine brush for a long, narrow tube, used to clean the mouthpiece itself. That single visit grew into something larger. So many of his students called the shop afterward that these tiny brushes are now shipped from Scandinavia all the way to Italy and France. One custom request, an entire quiet export trade built on nothing but word of mouth. Now, about 110 grams of fine white Chungking bristle, a particularly fine Chinese bristle, very good quality. From this, a flat lacquer brush, 4 inches, 100 millimeters wide. First, the bristle, evened out by tapping, is fed into the metal ferrule. Then, it is pushed back slightly, and a spacer is inserted, so that afterward there is a small reservoir left for the paint itself. It is tapped again, then pushed evenly forward along what is called the driver, which corresponds roughly to the brush's stem. Then, it can be removed. After that, the bristle would normally be set with cement, and the handle attached, fixed in place with pins. That is, roughly, how a lacquer brush like this one comes together. Bristle materials are not only goat hair. By far, the largest category is pig bristle. Beyond that, horsehair, cattle hair, and a great deal of plant fiber. For fine brushes and artist brushes, wild animal hair is often used too, though that never applies to standard brushes. The thick hair from a pig is properly called borste, bristle, and it comes in many variations. Colors first. Here is one that is what's called naturfarbe, its natural undyed color. Some are bleached lighter, which also looks more attractive. There are gray bristles, because gray pigs exist, and black bristles, like the ones in this brush. But color is not what determines quality. Quality depends on something else entirely, which breed of pig and which climate zone the bristle originally came from. This particular bristle, for instance, is completely unusable for a paintbrush. Its flag, the split tip, is far too long. Instead, it becomes brush-filling material. The flag is simply cut away. What remains, roughly 2/3 of the original bristle, is very strong. Mostly used for hairbrushes because it moves through hair extremely well. And this, wild boar bristle. Watch the split ends fan out. That structure is exactly what lets it trap dust rather than simply pushing it around. For brush care, he includes something small with every hairbrush sold, a simple comb and brush cleaner. Long hairs come out with a regular comb, but dust and scalp residue settled at the base of the brush come out cleanly with this tool, which means the brush itself needs washing far less often. Perfect. I'll take it. Wonderful. Let me wrap it for you. A brush made by hand, sold across the same counter it was built behind. The last shop of its kind that still makes what it sells.